Uh, Good evening. It is a pleasure to start this course on leaders in citizen security and justice management. It is a pleasure to start this first module on public policies on citizen security. We are going to start in 5 minutes with a session of questions and answers in 5 minutes. Thank you. Mm, Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to start this course on leaders in citizen security and justice management. This is our first module on public policies on citizen security. We will surely have a very lively session to exchange ideas and experiences on a sensitive issue for our region. I share this session with Ulises Uru. Together we will answer your question. For the English session, we didn't receive questions, but we have taken some from the Spanish session. we invite you to make and vote questions for the next model in 1 week. We have received 7 questions, very interesting and sensitive questions. Sometimes we have received ideas, just general ideas, and we have tried to make questions with those ideas. We have a first question. Are police forces accountable through figures and data? Is a very interesting question. The evaluation of police work has been a recurring issue. The quality of the police service and their performance should be evaluated. We have to evaluate police men on the beat. However, many police forces in the world that have introduced performance indicators have had many problems to assess the performance of police officers on the beat. I remember a quote of Theresa May when she was Interior Minister. She said that she was not going to use more indicators to measure performance of the police. For a long time in Britain, almost 30 performance indicators were used, and that produced a huge bureaucracy and paperwork without a concrete results. Theresa May said then that the only indicator of performance will be crime drop. Accountability on the police should not be seen as just a police meeting with the public, where the police officers describe performance figures, sometimes unreliable figures and data. Unfortunately, the reliability and consistency of the criminal figures are questionable and questioned. In Model 3, you're going to see those problems. I'm going to just quote some problems of figures in Latin America. For example, the frequent reforms to penal codes and the constant change in the definition of a crime cause that a certain illegal act is considered in a different way. And we don't have consistent figures for the same crime. Another example is that most acute problems in collecting criminal statistics is fraud and falsification to avoid negative evaluations or mismanagement. Other problem is censuses. Our census are carried out in our region almost 10 years, and we need this kind of projection of demographic growth decade after decade to calculate criminal rates. And we have found some problems with the censuses. They are not accurate that we want to be. Another problems is countries with federal government systems and decentralized police agencies. Sometimes they have difficulties to consolidate figures. Another problem is part of the crimes are not reported. There are what we know or black figures. We don't know for certain the levels of criminal acts in a city, for example, or a country, because we don't have enough crimes formally report before authorities. we receive another question. The question was, are countries with lowest levels of human development the ones with highest rates of violence and homicides? What other criminal acts characterize those countries? I have to say that insecurity has multiple explanations and causes. No single variable explains violence and crime. Similar sectors with similar socio-demographic and economic characteristics, identical government and police intervention, and similar urban environment can have very different criminal behaviors. One of the most critical debates to explain crime has been the so-called objective reasons. That is, inequality and poverty lead to homicides. Countries with large income inequalities can have a higher violent crime. The map of urban violence in Latin America and the Caribbean could corroborate this idea, since homicides are concentrated mainly in marginal neighborhoods. However, detractors of this hypothesis show that there are countries with a Gini index close to 100, that is very unequal and in income. And they don't have necessarily higher levels of crime. There is not a strong correlation between poverty and high levels of crime. I don't know if Ulises can develop this idea. Ulises? Okay, we have some problems with Ulises' microphone. In the 1960s, there were a very interesting theory called differential theory opportunities. And that is, society is composed of subcultures such as gangs, where the most disadvantaged youth find a means to achieve their goals through illegal means. And more recently, it has been asserted that there is not necessarily a direct relationship between inequity and violence. The poorest individuals are not the ones who commit the most crimes. Nor is it a phenomenon that occurs only in young people. The aspiration of certain people to reach a social status or acquire assets that do not materialize according to their resources lead them to commit crimes regardless of their age of social level. We call now this kind of crime aspirational crime. And there is not a strong link between poverty and crimes. Sometimes there is a more strong link between aspirations and status and the way to gain a better quality of life and crime. Sometimes corrupt politicians can be more criminal than a person without opportunities. You have opened your microphone, Ulises? I can hear you.
Okay.
I listen to you. Yeah.
Listen?
Yeah.
Well, I'm only in the commentary in America Latina. the accountability has been as a political discourse. If you see a good being, it's a never to see the social elements with the account reading is important beyond not the numbers involves the police with generous society and better relationship, you know.
Okay, we have a third question about the role played by fire weapons and drugs in crime. And I have to say that I think there is a strong correlation between drugs and weapons and crime, but uh, there are no empirical studies that have correlated both phenomenon and crime. I'm sure that there is a strong link, but we don't know for sure uh, if, for example, um, we, we we don't know for sure to allow us to establish this relationship. For example, we don't know if someone commits a robbery or a crime under the influence of drugs. We often do not know if a crime is motivated by a drug dealer or to gain territory for traffickers or mafias. We don't know with real statistics if a crime is committed to obtain money to buy a dose, for example. We can speculate, and we can say that is a relation in a strong relationship. There are studies that show that zones of influence of trafficking and gangs have more crimes concentrated in that zones. Uh, One of the most acute debates among the experts in citizen security in the region has been to determine if homicides in Latin America cities are the product of instrumental violence or motivational violence. There is a very big difference to 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 establish a diagnosis of the levels of criminal acts in a determined neighborhood or zone of a city. Instrumental violence is understood as a voluntary, premeditated act that seek to obtain some additional benefits. Is related to gangs, to dealer, is related to robbery, is a violence with a strong link with organized crime. It is understood by impulsive violence, also known as motivational, expressive, emotional violence, as an emotional response to personal differences with someone, and with the intention of causing harm. Is more a violence related to the heart, to the heart. The trafficking and consumption of drugs will be much more related and more linked to instrumental violence. Regarding the use of weapons, the second part of this question, the use of weapons, there are some experiences in some cities in Latin America limiting the use of weapons in certain hours or in certain days. There are some experiences in North America, in Boston, for example, to ban the use of weapons during some hours or in some neighborhoods. However, there are countries with very restrictive legislation for the use of weapons, which have high levels of crime. It is probable that the real controls of the use of weapons are failing. I think the problem is not the restriction and the law and the rule. Is the problem is the effective control by the police of the limitation of the use of arms and weapons. Because of a very important number of weapons on the street, illegal or legal weapons, are difficult to control with the existing police force. There is a problem also to control arms on the street, on the beat, is the problem of corruption of policemen and local authorities in general. The corruption of state agents that allow the possession and trafficking of weapons is very limited in our countries, and we have difficulties to ban definitely the use of weapons in many of our countries where is a recurrent use of weapons. We have a fourth question about the anomy theory. The question is the correlate. No, I think it's in the screen. Is the anomy theory one of the most reliable explanation to better understand violence and crime in Latin America? I do not believe that the theory of anomy can explain on its own a problem as complex and multivariate as insecurity. It is clear that poverty, as we have seen before, social inequality and lack of opportunities are fertile ground for the emergence of the criminal. But there are many theories that use these variables. For example, if you remember in our paper for the first module, we have quoted critical theories and the so-called relative deprivation, according to which individuals see themselves as poorer compared to others, and that make them more likely to commit crimes. And another criminal school ecological theories associated juvenile delinquency with certain kind of crimes and with certain neighborhoods in cities where disorder prevails and the lack of social structure. Various criminologists have concluded that poverty of some neighborhoods without enough social cohesion control tends to social disorganization, and the result is the commission of incivilities, especially among young people. But there are also theories that show that lack of controls and social parameters like a father, a mother, can facilitate crime. For some criminologists, crime is learned and can be learned among people who are not necessarily poor. More recently, it has been asserted there is not a direct relationship between inequity and violence. As we have said before, the poorest individuals are not the ones who commit the most crimes, nor is it a phenomenon present only in young people. The aspirations of certain individuals to achieve a social status can reach what we have said, a criminal aspiration. Do you have something to say, Ulises? Not, we cannot listen to you.
Oh,
We can hear.
oh,
We can
sorry.
hear.
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it's right.
Okay. There is, I think, there is no specific theory to understand the insecurity. The theories help us to try to understand and understand the social phenomenon. But it's important that make public policy we understand the social complexity. The in the theory of, for example, a theory of anomy says that if the younger aspires to life that cannot achieve the goal, then it will be criminal. But it's not necessarily it's true. It can be only one aspect or two aspects for the young. Um, if will be a criminal, but it's impossible understand only form only line.
Okay, we have another question. Maybe we can see the question. Yeah, there is a question on the screen. Given that the young population between 15 and 24 years old records the great majority of homicide, what has it been difficult to elaborate a measurable public policy that prevent youngsters to get into criminal world? Um I think there are policies in our region focusing young people, especially in education, professional training, employment. I think we have had some efforts to provide new parameters to our young population. However, state resources are limited, and it's not possible to meet huge needs of young people. Youngsters are still the largest population in Latin America. Sorry, and the existing programs do not cover the entire population. Uh, Also, the criminal world is attractive to certain youngsters since it gives them a great income in short time. It gives them also a sense of power among their communities, and they give them also a sense of belonging to a urban tribe like gangs. Leisure policies for children and young people are fundamental. And this is a part of another question: what we can do with leisure times for people, for young people, and how we can structure leisure times to fill these free times for youngster. Structured leisure times uh, prevent youngster to fall into delinquency. That is for certain. Free time outside of school's hours, without supervision, without parents' supervision, can lead some young people to adopt antisocial behavior. The risk increases if, as indicated by the situational theory that we can read in our paper for this module, a young person is exposed to a very poisoning environment of criminality with his peers. They can learn about crimes and how to commit crimes because of the contact with other peers, with other friends and colleagues. It is argued that the involvement of young people is a conventional activity. We can stop, we can tackle a young man to fall in crime, and filling their time with sports, with limiting the possibility of having a negative leisure time for drug consumption. We can stop young people to commit incivilities if they can find uh, other kind of activities far from crime and robbery, for example. Mm, do you want to say something further, Ulises? I can.
No, no, please continue.
Okay, okay. Uh, Leisure time. This is a sensitive time. This is a scientific issue. Uh, mm, yes, I try to remember some examples. Uh, the unstructured leisure times are the favorable ground for some young people and teenagers to fall into delinquency. Uh, Free time outside the school's hours without supervision may cause to adopt antisocial behavior. Uh, as we have seen within the framework of control theories, it was argued that the involvement of young people in conventional activities, such as sporting, can occupy their time and energy. For example, in France, we use a policy called, in French, chèque loisir. It's like coupons to attend different activities during leisure times. So young people can attend a, um, a football match, can practice a very expensive sport, can learn about theater, and they pay with coupons that the French government have provided to structure this leisure time. I think it's a good idea to fill time for people with subventions and financial helps to attend different vocational activities that without this kind of help, young people couldn't attend because of their lack of resources or shortage of financial resources. Um, we have another question here about the role of the police forces in the co-production of the co-production of security. I don't know if we have on the screen this slide to read the question. The question is, let me check. Let me check the question. Yeah, okay, I have the question here. There are various factors associated with urban crime: social, situational, and institutional factors. Is security intervention an exclusive responsibility of police forces? Um, yes. Uh, Today we talk about the co-production of security. For a long time, we talked that security was a exclusive responsibility of police forces. Now we know that is that we build security with the intervention of multiple actors that can build and plan security strategies. With the emergence of community policing, we have involved community, neighbors, and citizens in the co-production of security. Community policing, what was dismantled a few years ago, but it was a very good idea and very good experience to implement in our cities. Community policing encourage neighbors and residents to work together with local police to improve the quality of life and build a renewed community spirit. I think it was the first time that another actor was involved in the planification of security policies and strategies. Community members participated in crime prevention. They also watch neighborhoods and blocks. They help the police to identify the causes of crime and disorder and fear. The community also acted as key partner in the co-production of security communities. Those communities provided operational assistance and support in watching and criminal investigation. I think it was the first experience to involve another actor different from police forces. Today, we talk about co-production of security. There are a myriad of actors involved, and there are obviously community actors, government actors in the conception and implementation of citizen security strategies. Yeah. Today, for example, in Europe, we have partnerships between multiple actors. Every actor have to sign a protocol, an agreement, and these agreements are compulsory for each actor. Each actor has to accomplish a task, and they have to sign this contract to provide better security from their responsibility. Just to give you an example, a company of electricity, of energy, has to provide better lighting for a certain street. The agency responsible for housing has to provide better houses to combat nomadism and to help especially young people, and it is the way to avoid future misunderstanding with young people and provide housing and houses and shelters. For example, neighborhoods can sign a contract with the local authorities to provide private cameras, or some companies can provide jobs for young people and guide the teenagers in professional and vocational training. And I think at the end of the day, there are plenty of actors that have some responsibility to build a public policy in security, not just the police. Today, we do not conceive our societies without police, it's sure. When a criminal case happens, the police are called. When police strikes, criminality and chaos overflows. It is an essential agency, and it is quite new. Police forces were founded in 1891. No, sorry, in 1829 was founded the first real civil police force in London, and is a quite young institution, but we cannot think our lives in urban areas, especially without a police force. When police force strikes, there are more crimes those days. There are more problems, and we always call police forces when we have an emergency. But an interagency effort is required to eradicate, to banish favorable environments for the emergence of crimes. In addition, the state, the community, the citizens, and the general publics are fundamental in the building of a public policy on citizen security. I think time is almost over. I don't know if Ulises wants to add some opinions. Ulises?
No, Juan Carlos, it's fine.
Okay. I don't know if there is more questions that we can answer. I want to close this session, and I wish you to get the most, I don't know the word in English, the most profitable session, future sessions. We invite you to make and vote questions. We want to receive questions in English. We have received only questions in Spanish, what is a shame. I think especially the Caribbean region have many questions, and we can explain in future modules, and we can answer those questions that I think are very interesting and sensitive for the tranquility of our region. I have a question on the screen. Yes, could you please give us some examples of police forces in the region that have developed replicable transparency and accountability practices? Yes, they have some experiences. Unfortunately, they are not the most successful experiences. Some police forces in the region have set up some ombudsman, some inspection. Some police forces have internal inspections. Some police forces have adopted external inspections, inspectorías in Spanish. Other police forces have adopted ombudsman to follow and to investigate misbehaviors and complaints against police forces. But even in the United States, those kind of offices have not been quite successful. In the US, for example, there are 200 civilian oversights. And the problem is that civilians oversight don't have enough resources. They have not enough power and attributions to investigate policemen. And in sometimes civilian oversight is just a rhetoric um, discussion, a discourse to fake that we are doing something when the reality is that we are not doing practical things to combat corruption. There are some experiences in Brazil, in El Salvador, with inspections, with sometimes some successful cases, but I think impunity is the word that defines, in general terms, the corruption in our region. Our police institutions are quite corrupt, and the image of our police forces are very bad. According to Latino Barometro and surveys conducted from 1993, there are just 3 police forces, maybe 4 police forces with some good reputation. One example is Carabineros from Chile. Another example is the Colombian police force. Another example is police in Uruguay, maybe police in Puerto Rico. Apart these police forces, the reputation of our police forces in the region are very, very low. And even these police forces with a good reputation, have time to time very big scandals, and corruption is incrustated in even all the levels of the hierarchy of these police forces. I think time is over. We can close our session. I want to say many thanks to everybody. And again, I invite you to vote, to make questions and vote those questions for the live sessions. Next week we have live session, September 27 on governability and governance of citizen security. It's a very interesting issue that you can go further to understand. For example, the last question that we try to answer about accountability and civilian oversight for police forces.
Juan
so
Carlos,
we can close. Ulises,
Juan
do you
Carlos,
want to say something?
I have
¿No te oímos?
other.
I can hear you. I can't hear you. Okay, yeah.
Sorry. You can't now hear me? Okay. Well, I have other question. It's a very, very good question. Maybe you can say something. This is the question. You see?
Yeah. I can
It's
see.
it's good question.
Yeah, yeah. I think there is a gap between. Um, there is a gap between the academic world and the practitioner. Is We cannot deny this kind of gap. Uh, I think from universities and research centers, we have to improve our researches. We are now in a state of infancy in terms of our researches. They are we have had some very interesting researches until now, but if we compare with Anglophone tradition in criminology, we can realize that there is a long path to cover to have this kind of specialization of English researchers. Uh, for example, we don't know the role of women into police forces. For example, if you compare with Britain and the U.S., you can see very important researchers on police image, on the role of women into the police forces. And we don't have this level of specialization in Latin America and the Caribbean region. Uh, there are some efforts, for example, in Brazil and Chile, in Argentina. There are more professors studying uh, crimes and criminology, urban violence, police forces. But we are now in a state of infancy in this kind of researches, and we have to go deeper to understand better some phenomena. For example, the huge problems that we have in prisons, corruption, overcrowding, and there are no many researchers trying to understand the problems of our prisons, and we need more people like the participants of this course, um, doing more researches to feed in certain way, to feed practitioners and civil servants. I think many interesting ideas that were later implemented by practitioners uh, were born into universities. For example, the criminology center from Harvard was pioneering in the use of terms like team policing, community policing, predictive policing, and these kind of ideas were fundamental later for civil servants and local authorities to implement other ways to understand security and the role of police forces. And I think there is a strong link. Uh, I think at the end, to conclude, is the practitioners and civil servants and uh, the academic world are not to get us without connection, without link. There is a connection between both, and we can learn together to have better experiences and better policies in this issue, in this sensitive topic. I think we can close now. Okay. Yeah, time is over. It was a pleasure to share with you our some experiences, some ideas, and we invite you again to vote and to propose some questions or give ideas for the discussion and further discussion in module 2 until module 6. There are many different topics, and there are many live sessions that you can use to propose your ideas. So many thanks to everybody, and I don't know if Ulises want to say something to close
No,
this.
only thank you very much for your attention. It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Bye.